Welcome, this is Brandy with Be Bit Crafty. Today I'm going to show you how to make Feyre's dresser drawers, which will be based off the book A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I wanted to try my hand at this project after seeing other versions of Feyre's dresser on the internet. I thought it was a really cute and easy to replicate project for any fan of the series. As you can see, I'm going to be using a miniature dresser for today's project, which will make the filming process easier for me, but the same steps apply no matter what size dresser you're using. Step 1 is sanding. You can use a sanding sponge or regular sandpaper. I'm using a 220 grit for this project. I prefer the sponge because it's easier for me to hold on to, but paper is easier to get the edges with. Also, side note, this is my first time sanding anything. Takeaways from the experience was to wear a mask, or even better, just sand outside, since you accumulate a lot of dust quickly with very little sanding. Spread out your sanding. Don't sand just in one spot. This is cheap wood, and you can sand a hole straight through it. Mostly, I'm looking to get rid of the fuzzy texture on the wood. This will make it easier for the stain to adhere to it when we get to that point. Another takeaway from sanding is when you're sick of sanding, you're still not done, and just to keep sanding. The easiest way to check if you're done is to run your hands along the wood. If the fuzzies are all gone, you can move on to the next step, which is staining. Staining is pretty easy. I'm taking the sponge to apply the dark walnut stain generously. Then I take a paper towel to wipe the excess off and continue the process until the dresser is covered. Don't forget the edges, and don't forget to stain inside the dresser itself. I remembered in the book that the bed and dresser came from Feyre's old house, and the bed was said to be made of ironwood, so I assumed the bed and dresser matched, and ironwood makes me think heavy and dark, which is why I picked dark walnut for the stain. However, after further research, I discovered that Feyre actually describes the dresser as an old black dresser. And I thought about taking a darker stain, an ebony stain, in order to make it match and be more accurate to the book description. When I got the idea for this project, I wanted it to match my apothecary cabinet that Josh made me, but unfortunately it's a different shade of brown than the apothecary cabinet, and so I failed on both fronts. Moral of this story, do all your research for a project first, no matter how bad you want to get started. Things considered though, I think I like the dark walnut stain better, since I don't think with the ebony you would see the variations in the wood at all. The battle between accuracy and aesthetics is eternal. Here I'm hitting each drawer individually with the stain. Since they are the centerpiece for this project, I want to make sure not to miss a spot. I'm paying special attention to the dresser pulls, since it's difficult to get the edges of the pulls with the stain. Time for the fun part, painting! Each drawer will represent one of the 3 Archeron sisters. The first drawer is Elain's, the middle sister, and is described as having roses and violets around the drawer. In one of the other books, it's also described as having twining vines. First step, I'm going to take my green Posca marker, #notsponsored, and mark out the vines. Since roses are mentioned, this vine will get thorns. Feyre picks this for Elain's drawer because she loves to garden. Now I'm taking a lighter shade of green to start twining the second vine. The lighter shade makes it easier to differentiate between the two. I'm using a red Caron Deco brush marker to put in the roses. They are the largest flowers, so I want to place them first. It's also important not to get the paint anywhere I don't want it, since it's impossible to remove acrylic off this stain. Next, I'm adding yellow for the violets. I feel the color yellow is going to help tie the designs of the other drawers together. Yellow is a bright color and it stands out well against the stain. It's starting to look like a proper garden drawer. I feel the colors are too dark, so I am lightening up the leaves and the flowers so they don't get lost in the dark brown of the stain. second drawer will be Nesta, the oldest sister's drawer, and hers is described as being flickering flames. Feyre has a tumultuous relationship with her eldest sister, which I guess is why she picked flames for her drawer. I went ahead and filled in the outline with yellow, and now I'm going to take a red Posca marker to hit the tips of the flames. Finally, I take an orange marker to go below the red line and add the color orange to the flames. After some debating, I decided to give the drawers a stylized design and not a realistic one, mostly because the drawers themselves are so small. Also pretend, since Feyre isn't a formally trained artist, maybe that would be the style she chose for herself. I did see a funny post though talking about how Feyre can't paint at all, and all the characters just pretend she is an amazing artist. Though I doubt this is the case, because if Feyre sucked at painting, Nesta would absolutely tell her so. After outlining a few flames in orange, we're done with Nesta's drawer. Finally, we come to Feyre's drawer, the youngest sister and the main character for most of the series. Her drawer is described as having whirling yellow stars in the night sky. She chooses this image for herself because, well, I'm not going to spoil it, you'll have to read the books. I decided to use 3 intersecting circles for the background to emphasize the whirling stars. Then I used a lighter blue to add variation to the background to make it more interesting. Other sisters' drawers all have curves in them, so I'm keeping that pattern here. I think it helps to tie these 3 very different images together along with the yellow. Now it's time to just add a whole bunch of stars. I just keep carefully adding more stars in different shapes and forms. Some are just dots, and some are the more traditional star shape. I keep going until they feel sufficiently whirled. I might have added too many stars. It's a dangerous line to know when to stop and when you went overboard. I really enjoyed Feyre's character. She reminds me a lot of Katniss, with just a hint of Peeta dashed in with her love of art. By now you might have noticed that I didn't use any plain white or black in this project, and that is because in the book, Feyre paints the drawers just using primary colors. I could have mixed all the colors, but I'm lazy and I didn't want to mix that much paint, so I went with the easy route of pre-mixed paint and paint markers. All the drawers are now complete, so now it's time to put them in the dresser and move on to the final shots. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing to see more weird projects that I come up with.